Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's session. We'll be discussing a very sensitive and very latest issue, which causes a lot of concern nowadays because of a report by the BBC as well. So that will be domestic violence in the immigration law of the UK. So we'll be looking into this topic quite a bit, and we have Mr. Khandakar Omar Farooq, solicitor and barrister, as well as director of Avista Solicitors with us today. Welcome, Mr. Farooq.
Thank you very much, Joydev.
So, if we just start with the basic things, what does domestic violence actually mean in under the immigration law of the UK?
Well, the definition is quite broad, but
Hmm.
if you align with it, the Domestic Abuse Act 2021 is similar to like physical violence, which could be psychological violence, um, financial abuse, that's also comes under this, coercion
Hmm.
and coercive behavior. Now, the point is, it not only has to be done by the partner or husband or a spouse. It can be done by their immediate family
Hmm.
members, say, for example, father in law, mother in law, brother in law. So it's quite broad, and every case has to be considered on its own merit and circumstances. But
Hmm.
basically, um, if someone comes to the UK, whether it is husband or wife, as a spouse, um, civil partner, unmarried partner, and they suffer from domestic abuse, they don't have to. So they have options available. Um, so this is basically domestic abuse under immigration rules in the UK.
I mean, when you are doing like a spouse application or dependent application, there is something like called genuine and subsisting relationship. Is that also required under the domestic violence applications?
Absolutely.
Hmm.
The eligibility for the domestic violence or domestic violence, ILR based on the domestic violence. Unfortunately, so many so-called brokers, or you can call TikTok lawyers, they probably misled or they're misguided, because the first and foremost criteria for domestic violence ILR is that you have to, when the relationship started, like you got married or you formed a civil partnership, the
Hmm.
other partner, a sponsoring partner, either has to be a British citizen or settled person. But as you know, we have seen anybody comes to the UK, they think, oh, they can avail these options,
Hmm.
especially in some communities, they have got this misconception. I
That's
always
correct.
give this, yes, I always give this example. Like you can go to Buckingham Palace, but only if you have the permission to go in, you will be allowed. So you can make an application to the Home Office. That's not a problem. You pay the fee, but whether it will be successful or not, that's the question. So
Yes, absolutely.
if you come to the UK, or if you form your relationship, like you become wife or husband and you get married in the UK, that time, not after that, other sponsoring partner or husband has to be either British citizen or settled, which is ILR holder. Otherwise, the first criteria, any application, you have to be successful, you have to fulfill three criteria: validity, eligibility, and suitability.
Hmm.
You don't fulfill this criteria. So, yeah.
So yes, that's I mean a very interesting point because we have seen some of our clients who are like skilled worker dependent. They were advised by the social worker or some other person to apply for the domestic violence while they are while the main applicant, I mean the skilled worker is, I mean, is still in the skilled worker route. They haven't got the ILR route. So yes, we have got some clients, if you remember. So
And I can also remember what was our advice. No ifs,
yes,
no but. That this
yeah,
is wrong. You can't. Hmm.
hmm, yeah. So yes, that's what we advised as well. So yeah, she applied different on different application afterwards. Anyway, if I go to the next portion, so what kind of evidence the Home Office are looking for if someone is applying for the domestic violence application?
Again, there is no fixed rule about the evidence.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Even normally, say for example, the other sponsoring partner has been convicted of a criminal offense. That's
Mm-hmm.
conclusive evidence that you are the victim of domestic violence. Again,
Okay.
if you get a caution, that's probably kind of conclusive. Again, you don't have any evidence because what happens in domestic violence cases, they don't want to report because of the shame and because the other sponsoring partner in most cases used to be male. But I think in nowadays the colloquial term it could be the female as well, you know. So
Mm-hmm.
it could be medical report. We always said get the doctor's report, police report, social worker report, then letter from any charity, refugee charity like male domestic victim or female domestic victim,
Mm-hmm.
even witness statement from friends, family, even just a statement from yourself could be the vital evidence because in most cases of domestic violence, the victim, they don't want to report to anybody, let alone
Yes,
doctor, police. So they kept because they are the victim and they are scared of their abuser. So even if
absolutely.
just a contemptuous statement from you could be suffice, you know, could suffice. So
Mm-hmm.
again, there is no hard and fast rule. But always I say, if you face this domestic violence, which again I stress, it could be psychological, it could be physical, it could be mental, it could be financial, it could be, just report it at least when you see the doctor, when you see your GP, tell them because then it will be recorded, it will be on their record and it will help you because um, the the rule was designed to protect those victims.
Mm-hmm.
So we always suggest that keep some sort of record at least. Um, we have, you know, the recently the one we have dealt with, real a victim of domestic violence,
Yeah.
and um, he had the physical injury, he had the police report. Um, in the one of the most important thing is like there is a multi-agency report. It's called Marak report, and
Mm-hmm.
it helps a lot because in the report, the police, the social service, various organizations they meet together and they prepare a report. And if that report assess you as a high risk victim or high risk victim of domestic violence, then probably that's enough. You know.
Yeah. Yeah, I get it. You have explained it quite beautifully. So yes, it happens to everyone, irrespective of the gender or, I mean, the social status. It happens, and yes, we have got some critical cases which was succeeded as well. So,
I mean,
I'm
just on that note, sorry, Joydeep. You know
yes, sorry.
the last case we dealt with, the victim
Yeah,
was the male. I'm sorry to say, but
yeah,
this is reality.
yeah. This
Um,
happens. Yeah.
the first day he came to us, very handsome man, and he said, "I can't take it anymore." He said, "I suffered 5 years. Now, um, when I asked her my ILR is due, she said, "No, I'm not going to renew your visa ILR. I'm going to keep you on a 10-year route." The
Mm-hmm.
gentleman had physical marks as well. And obviously, the police and the doctor, they dealt with it. Nobody
Mm-hmm.
has to go through this. This is UK, you know. Thank
Absolutely.
you. Mm.
Absolutely. So, is there any concession on those domestic violence cases?
Yeah, basically, as you know, this in most cases, the victim also controlled financially by the abuser. So,
Mm-hmm.
what happens? Maybe when they report it to the authorities, they have to leave the house, and how can they survive? That's why the government made this rule that they can claim public benefit for 3 months. I mean, you don't have to claim, but you can.
Mm-hmm.
And again, during this time, you can prepare your all this evidence and statements so that you can apply for ILR. So what I we have seen, nowadays, because eligibility criteria has to be met. Now, a lot of people, even though they don't, their application will not be successful at the end, they try to take this benefit, which is, I think, an abuse
Mm-hmm.
of the process. Anyway, so you can take past 3 months access to public fund. Normally, if you come on a visa, you are not entitled to have public fund. Even though if you are a spouse, only once you have ILR, you can get the public fund.
Mm-hmm.
But in this
Yeah.
case, you are entitled to have access to public fund for 3 months so
Yeah.
that you don't have
I'll,
to be
I,
on the street.
yes, I'll come to the abuse issue later on. So before that, if I just ask you one thing that sometimes, people wait for their visa to expire. Is that necessary or they can just apply immediately once the domestic violence took place? What do you think?
They don't have to wait. They can apply as soon as they are the victim of domestic violence.
Mm-hmm.
So they don't have to wait.
Okay. And you have mentioned the evidences. Is it like very difficult to get those evidences? Is there any
No,
practical challenges to
no.
get those evidences?
Well, as I said, like because the victim most of the time, because of social embarrassment, shy, or because of the cultural background, they
Mm-hmm.
want to keep themselves, all this fear and scared. So I would stress who are the victim of the domestic abuse. They should sometimes even like if you keep a diary,
Mm-hmm.
you are abused by your husband or wife. You just keep a diary. Every day you write this will be also evidence,
Yeah.
and just the diary note that could be the vital evidence, that what happened every day you could wrote,
Yeah,
and you
it's
tell
called
your
contemporary notes. Yeah.
yes, contemporary note. You tell your friend, share your friend, doctor, I mean, it's not hard and fast rule that you have to show this, that, that. I mean, it's like any sort of evidence that proves. And this evidence could be, as I said, a statement from yourself, a statement from charity, a statement from your friend, close friend,
Mm-hmm.
again, report from the doctor, report from the police. I mean, um, another thing, the social worker involved, they will be one of the uh, main helping point for you because they will
Yeah.
also liaise with other bodies. Mm,
All
okay.
right.
Mm.
All right. So yeah, the Home Office, I believe, will look into all the overall credibility of the application, not only in some pieces of evidence.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah. So I mean, I believe you have definitely seen the latest BBC report on the dozy immigration practitioners regarding the asylum and the domestic violence. Have you got any comment on that?
Well, um, there has always been abuse of the immigration rules by some quarters,
Mm-hmm.
um, and especially, I think last 2 or 3 years, domestic violence case has gone up more than 50%. I don't know
Wow.
what is the reason. Probably, um, a lot of them are not the real victim of domestic violence.
Mm-hmm.
I get a lot of calls, that we get a lot of calls, and I say, oh, can I apply for domestic violence ILR? I said, what happened? Did you have any fight with husband? No. What happened? Oh, he shouted at me. That's not enough. Sometimes we do, and um, but if it is continuously harassing you, belittle you, insulting you, that's a different
Mm-hmm.
thing. But one day he shouted at me, and also think like a lot of these domestic, so-called domestic victim, they don't want to wait 5 years. They just want ILR as soon as they land in the UK. As you know, we have a couple of family cases at the moment, and where we are dealing with their divorce and financial remedy. But
Mm-hmm.
they rarely lived with their partner, maybe three, four
Yeah.
months. And obviously, these other gentlemen, they have to go through all this process because financial remedy cases that uh, cost a lot of money, even though there will not be any remedy for the applicant, but it's still
Mm-hmm.
they have to go through this process.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. That's right.
like I always say, caveat emptor, before you get married, be careful who you get married. Mm.
I mean, relationships are like you cannot certainly say which relationship is going to be like very uh non-problematic. There will be problems, but yeah, it's a different issue. We'll discuss it about it probably another day. So,
Of course,
regarding the domestic issues, domestic violence cases, so you do the merit test first with the client. So, will you say that for all the solicitors who are also practicing on the same area?
the thing is that when a client comes to as a officer of the court and the rule of law, you have a duty to protect the vulnerable and victim of domestic abuse. So
Mm-hmm.
um, even if you see that they haven't reported to anybody, it's your duty to advise them and tell them that that's not the end of the world. There is another world. Um, Only if they're the genuine victim of domestic abuse. So you have a duty to advise them properly so that what are options available for them. They don't have to go through this. That was the last case, as I mentioned again, because this guy was at a loss. Very handsome man. Again, he was crying, probably 6 feet tall, and he said, "I don't have
Mm-hmm.
to take this," And I think he's earning around 40K, and
Mm-hmm.
his wife always was saying like, "Oh, I brought you here. I brought you here, so you owe me. You owe me." And one day,
Yeah.
I think they physically hurt him by his wife and by in-laws, and that was the end of it. And when he came to us, he didn't know what to do. And I said, "Look,
Yes.
this is the situation. You are the victim of domestic abuse, so you don't have to leave the UK. You don't have to go any other visa. You can apply for indefinite leave to remain on the basis of domestic abuse because you are the genuine victim of domestic abuse." And he got the ILR, no problem, you know.
I mean, that's what happened with the genuine domestic violence case. They don't know what they're going to do. So we
Absolutely.
we advise them, but when it's a doji client, they know everything that
No,
they need to apply for the
sorry,
domestic
Jadid.
violence.
Other thing, because like this client is very educated, he got UK degree. But the thing is that
Hmm.
when it comes to family issue, you lose your mind, you know what to
Yeah.
do. You know that family clients, especially, this is family matter, but even though we dealt with immigration, but this is we classify as a family client, they are the most vulnerable. So you have to deal with them in a different way, delicate, soft way, because
Hmm.
they are not themselves anymore.
Yeah.
When the most trusted person, the most reliable person, either husband or wife, and they make your life hell, what do? You can't keep your head cool. So
Yes, absolutely.
even
Absolutely.
though sometimes they know about it, but they don't realize, because they are lost.
Hmm. I mean, that's what the domestic violence is about, and also the protection with the immigration law of the UK as well. I
Mhm.
mean, if there is a genuine case, the law, I mean, is there to protect them. But yeah, I mean, some people are abusing it, and probably the Home Office is going after it.
Yes,
So yes, thank you.
yeah,
Yeah,
sorry.
sorry.
Yes, some people are abusing it, and as you mentioned, the BBC has made a report about it, and I pray and hope these people should get their due.
Yeah. So yes, thank you so much, Mr. Farooq, for joining us today. And yes, if you have got any questions about your situation, which you are thinking that whether you are suffering from domestic violence or not, you can definitely contact Mr. Farooq or Avista Solicitors at the given number, and we'll be more than happy to help you. So yes, thank you again for joining us today, and thank you for your information.
No problem at all. Have a good evening. Thank you, everyone. Bye bye.
Bye. See you again.